Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Mic'd Podcast. I'm Mike, a hairdresser of over 20 years. One of the best parts of my job is the conversations that I get to have with all of my clients. We talk about anything and everything and invite you to listen in as we get mic'd up for today's conversation. On this episode, we have Sarah in the chair. Sarah is a 25-year-old hair school student who I thought we were going to talk all about dating as a young 20-year-old, but took a turn down a very unexpected story of why she didn't spend time dating at all and how her life became quite the roller coaster. I hope you enjoy. All right.
I guess gotta do it again after.
That's right.
Pixie.
Okay, are you ready for this?
Nope.
Yes, you are. This is going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun.
I know. It'll be good.
Okay. Well, welcome. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
chair. Thanks for coming and
Thank you for
sitting
having
down
me.
and letting me cut your hair off today because
yeah.
we're going to cut a lot off.
Are you kidding? Haircut from Mike?
All right. Yeah.
Privilege.
Okay, so I'm excited because I've been waiting for somebody to talk to that's younger than me.
Okay.
'Cause I'm an old man and
Well, you're so welcome.
I'm so disconnected from the world. I don't even know. But you're 24, right? Okay, so
Unfortunately.
I have been dying to ask because I've been married now for 15 years. 15 years? Yeah, I better get that right or my wife will get mad at me. 15 years. And I'm so interested. I want to hear your story as far as dating goes as young, because my realm of dating, I've had a lot of clients that I've talked to about dating lately, and the dating world is so different now versus when I was meeting people in the produce section at a grocery store being like, hi.
You gotta get creative.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, what do you think, what's your take on the dating scene and how difficult is it or how easy is it now? And kind of tell me your history of where you've come from up to where you are now as far as dating goes.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. So it's hard because, I have a boyfriend now.
Okay.
So I've never been I've never been a very big dater, dating multiple people, trying to figure it out kind of thing, I guess. I'd usually, find one person and kind of cling to it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask really quick. So when you were high school, because it wasn't too long ago, did you date a lot? Or did you date a lot of different people? Did you tend to have just one boyfriend and then work?
I tended to have one boyfriend. It's kind of weird because I feel like I didn't really have too many, hardly.
Okay.
I mean, in high school, I've got a lot of toxic history with the boys.
What do you mean by toxic history?
I've moved around a lot because my dad was military, but my best high school time was in Alaska, and we moved after my freshman year to go down to Florida because my dad retired. And Florida was definitely different because it was very hoity-toity, kind of like a competition, I feel like, between people. And so I didn't really fit in. I was an outcast for a while. It felt like I didn't totally make great friends.
Is that just because you moved around a lot?
I don't know, because I always usually bounced back after we moved around, but it was just specifically Florida. I don't know. I think it was my hardest move because I was older and I had such good friends in high school in Alaska.
Okay.
But I don't know. It was just different. And then I got eventually a boyfriend down there that was really bad news and got me into some bad stuff. And I was drifting away from family and kind of playing the whole rebellious, you don't know me, you don't know anything, I hate you. You're just trying to ruin my life kind of thing with him. And it got so bad to the point that I went back up to Alaska to visit one summer, and then coming back, I realized, that's what happiness is like. Like, I actually am in a bad situation and I'm not happy. But the guy was pretty kind of scary, and he's threatened. It's a pretty small town in Florida.
Okay.
And he would threaten a lot, and he thought my parents were just the worst people, and would threaten, if I ever see your dad out, he's getting a brick to the head, and like just like scary, like he definitely not safe stuff.
Yeah.
But I realized, so this is gonna get deep really fast. But when I was in Alaska, I cut it off and I broke up with him.
Okay.
And then he got mad, so he had inappropriate stuff of me and posted it on social media.
Okay. So there was a documentary about that not too long ago, the most hated man on the internet. So he took stuff that you had given him personally and then tried to.
I saw that. I think people, even like guys, would send in submissions of stuff that they had of girls and everything.
So you went through that. You had that.
And it was a time, I feel like it's still a thing and I never understood it. And I think it's just weird that kids would have like spam Instagram accounts where they would post all of their grungy, inappropriate stuff, like if they're doing drugs or sexual stuff. And he posted it on there, but then immediately blocked me. And I had somebody tell me, and it was just a whole whirlwind. And I think it ended up taking it down. But after that, I didn't ever want to show my face at school the next year again. And the next year was going to be my senior year. So I convinced my parents to let me go back up to Alaska to graduate. But at the time, they're retired in Florida, and they built a house, and my dad has his job down there because he retired from the military, but he was a financial advisor down there.
Okay.
So for a lot of my senior year, I ended up living with a best friend up there and her family. But my mom, a couple months after I moved up, she came up with me. So then she did the sacrifice of being apart from my dad. And she did trips back and forth. So when she did that, I would just stay with my friend again. But that definitely kind of saved my life, I think. And I'm super thankful for it. But I then met somebody in high school, my senior year up there, that I had known. He was a twin, so everybody kind of knew of the twins. They were kind of destructive. But I ended up dating him, and I think that's, I don't know, I cling on, like I said, I cling on to people a lot, so that's not totally great. Like, I didn't totally just date around and figure it out.
But so after the guy that basically exposed you and did all this stuff, like, did you find it hard to get back into a relationship? Were there trust issues? Was it?
Yeah, there was definitely trust issues. I didn't end up dating this guy until the end of senior year.
So what made you feel comfortable enough to, like, what did this guy, the one that you found, what did he do that made you think, okay, I'm ready for another relationship?
Honestly, probably not enough. So this guy he is my ex-husband now. Okay. So I ended up marrying him, but I couldn't tell you. I think my whole life I have been in love with the idea of getting married and having kids and starting a family, that I was cautious with him because I didn't date him for a while, and towards the end of senior year, I ended up telling him, well, I don't think this is going to work because after senior year, I'm going back to Florida. And like, I can't imagine you're that serious about it, kind of thing. And then that didn't really stick. And so we ended up still dating a while after that.
How old were you at this point? Like, when you said you got married to him. Mm-hmm. How old were you when you got married?
21. And we started dating at 18.
Oh, so you were young.
Yeah. It was a week after I turned 21, or in the same week. But he was like, no, like, I really like you. It'll be good. It'll be fine. So I think that our issue with me going through with marrying him was, one, like I said, I was in love with the idea of it, but not necessarily the person. And two, we were long distance our entire relationship besides those like 2 months that we were dating in Alaska. Because I, of course, after graduation, moved back home to Florida, and he, the following fall, joined the military. And I think that was another part of it, was my dad was military growing up. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I can stay in the life. And he went to basic training and everything, and I followed him through that and went to his basic graduation. And then he got stationed in Kansas, and we did trips back and forth a lot and stuff, but he did a lot of things that I was thinking, okay, you're kind of jacked up. Like, you're not great, but I would stomach it. But
So
we
if you don't like, if you don't want to share, like, I don't want to like call somebody out on things that when they're not here to defend themselves or whatever, but like,
he can be called out. He
what kinds
deserves
of what kinds of things was he like doing that you're like, "Dude, what the?
So I would get a lot of messages periodically from girls that we went to high school with, saying, hey, you need to tell him to stop sending me stuff, because he would try to solicit pictures from them and would, like, without them asking, would send pictures of himself to them, is what they said. But I would constantly, like, I knew, because I'm not dumb, but I would pretend like they were lying, I guess.
Yeah.
And every time I would ask him about it, it would be a blatant lie, like, oh, that's such BS. They're just out to get me, or I wasn't liked in high school, and so they just want to sabotage me. And I kept telling him, I'm like, I don't think every single girl in our high school wants to watch you burn. I think they couldn't care less about you. So it was a lot of stupid, blatant lies. Mm-hmm. But then there were things that he would do that were just like, he wasn't very nice. Like, just the way that he would talk to me or treat me. And I realized a lot of it was his dad, because his dad treats his mom like that, and his dad is a very gruff, I don't know. He just wasn't respectful.
Yeah. That was his upbringing. I mean, we all act the way that we do because of how we were raised and what things that we were taught and whatever. So
role models and stuff.
I mean, I understand it. It doesn't mean I accept it. It doesn't mean that it's okay.
And yeah, exactly. And I think I did accept it because I was like, well, his mom is the sweetest person on earth. I love her. She's accepted me. Like, his dad, is kind of an ass, but that's just his upbringing. They're just gruff. And so it's just what he knows. It's his personality. So I don't know. I would push down the girls a lot and everything. And then, my biggest problem, which I hear younger girls than me that are like 19 in school talking about, like, forcing their boyfriends to, not totally forcing, but kind of like how I was, like, pushing for an engagement so much. And I'm like, you need to calm down. Because I know it's easier said than done, because I did it, because I pushed and pushed and pushed because I wanted that.
So was that something like you were raised with? Like, were you told, like, I mean, your parents weren't like, one day you're going to get married and it's going to be this and and that was just kind of like, what made you want so badly to have that engagement or to have that?
I don't know. I think I was caught up with, like, wanting the attention from it at the time, that I don't know. I wanted to plan it. Like, I just was excited for that step, I guess. But no, it wasn't. I mean, my parents got married, I think they might've been 21 or 23, but they weren't ever, like, they thought I was too young. They got to the point where they thought, well, it's your decision. We can't make you not do it, but we don't think, like, what's the harm in waiting?
Do you feel like it made you feel like I'm an adult now, or like
probably,
feel like grown up a little bit more? Or?
Probably. And with, like, even though this relationship was toxic, with toxic relationships in the past, I kind of was like, well, I wanted to look like I made it. Like
Yeah.
I found what I was supposed to do. I'm happy and give that appearance and everything. And there were also my best friend in high school. She's still not right, but she didn't know him at all, my ex-husband. And she would tell me that he's bad news. She just has a bad feeling about it. And I wouldn't listen to her. So we ended up falling off. And I was like, why can't you just be my friend, even if you don't agree with him? Like, you don't even know him. So we ended up falling off. And so it also got to the point where I wanted to prove people wrong, I think. And yeah, I don't know. I guess, like I said, just look like I made it. So I pushed for it a lot.
So you were more worried, like, it looked like you made it, so you were more worried about what other people thought, kind of a thing?
Yeah, unfortunately.
You're talking to a people pleaser.
I know.
I know that feeling very well.
And just, I mean, it's still even more so growing, but just having that appearance on social media, and you always want to look better than everybody else. You want to look like you thrived more than everybody else. And it's just such a competition, it seemed like. And I fed into it, but I just kept convincing myself that it's what I wanted and it was right. And again, he was military, and so I felt like it lined up with what my vision was. And so I pushed and pushed, and he went along with it and ended up asking my dad the first time. And then my dad was like, no, I think you need to wait till this point at least. And then if you guys are still thinking about it. And so we did. And then he proposed. And so, and that was, I think he proposed when we were 19 or 20.
And at that,
maybe 20. We were 20.
At that proposal, because I've gone through, I was married, I got divorced, did all. At that proposal, was it like an exciting time? Was it still like, I don't know if I should be doing this?
I think the whole time I had a pit in my stomach that would make me second guess things, but it was also exciting because, I couldn't wait to brag about it. But it was also so forced that like we went ring shopping together. I picked out my ring, and at the time, so he had to even use my credit to get it because he didn't have credit or anything, which is fine. I mean, we're young. It's not a big deal. But at the time, we had to wait for that to get approved, and he was just visiting because he was stationed in Kansas. And we didn't think that I wanted him to propose on that trip so bad that we didn't think that we would have the ring for it. And so I was devastated because I just was forcing it so much. And then he got like a fake ring from the same jewelry store that was just it was like a green, it was a pretty ring, but it wasn't like an engagement ring. It was like a placeholder. So we used that, and I mean, he tried to hide it, and the engagement was cool. He proposed it. There's this place in Florida called Crab Island, and we rented a pontoon boat and went out with friends and stuff, and he pretended like my friends were taking a picture, but it was a video. So it was nice, like it was cool. But so yeah, that happened, and then wedding planning, and I'm doing everything by myself. He could care less about it. And there's still times throughout the engagement where I get stuff from other girls. But the worst time I got something from a girl was after he came and visited, and we had a little engagement party / like a birthday thing for me. Okay. And he left, and then a week later, he just got super weird and distant and kind of not in it. Like it was obvious he was second guessing or something. And I would ask him, and he'd say, oh, well, I just miss you, and it's hard, and it feels so long until we're going to be married and together. And I'd say, well, we've done it this long, and we have a year left. It's going to go fast. We have visits back and forth. You were just here. It's fine. He's like, well, I'm just tired of saying bye and all this stuff. And it got to the point where he was being so distant. I was like, well, fine. If you think that like you don't want to wait, then like say it now before we get further. And more things are planned and stuff. And then I was like, you can have the ring back. Like, it's not a big deal. I mean, it was, I was being dramatic about it, like just whatever, bye kind of thing. But then he flipped it on me and was like, you just want to call quits. I'm like, what? I'm so confused. But then months later, that thing, I guess, got resolved. I don't really remember how or why. I probably just dropped it because I did that a lot. And I was visiting him in Kansas, and then my brothers lived in Oklahoma. So we drove down to Oklahoma for New Year's Eve to spend it with them. And I had to be a snoopy girl, and he was sleeping, and I decided I'm going to go through his phone.
So did you decide to go through that just because of how he was acting? Because it was just off?
Yeah. Every time I did it, I got just bad feelings, and I was like, I feel like I need to, or I wanted to.
Listen to your gut.
Yeah. Your gut always tells you something, and my gut told me for a long time. But I found messages with another girl we went to high school with that she had a kid, and she wasn't with the person. So it was just her and the kid. And he was talking to her for like a week and saying, oh, Sarah just doesn't understand stuff. We're on a break right now. We're not together. I want to be with you. I want to be a dad to your kid, and just weird stuff. Like, we're 20, and it just wasn't normal.
Well, and especially if you're in a relationship with somebody else.
Yeah.
So like,
but these girls knew, and so they'd always say, hey, aren't you dating Sarah? And he'd say, no, we're on a break right now, or she just doesn't understand, or she doesn't do this right, or she doesn't do that right, and would throw me under the bus. And I think that one hurt the most because it wasn't him just being gross and greedy and getting things. He was trying to say, oh, I want to be with you. I want to father your son.
And this was after you were married or before?
This is before. So we're still engaged. This is New Year's Eve, and we were supposed to get married the next October.
Okay.
So I address him with it. And of course his instinct is, why the are you going through my phone? Like, you psycho, what is wrong with you? And but this time that he was talking to this girl about this was the time that he was being so weird after he had just left from visiting me. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And so I kind of put two and two together. Oh my gosh, my hair is short. But I don't know. It's kind of hard. Things get blurry now that I can't really remember how things get resolved. And I think it's just because they never did. I just kept dropping stuff. And he's like, no, I want to be with you. It was nothing. I don't know. And what got me is because when I'd ask him about it, I'm like, well, how long did you talk to her? He'd say, oh, a week. Now, you said that after a week? Are you psycho? But it was also hard because it was at my brother's, and so I was definitely off, but I was trying to pretend like nothing happened, but I wasn't really talking to him because I didn't know what to do or think. But the more and more things went on, I kept thinking the toxic, like, please people, you can't back out now. Like, your parents have put money into this. You have things set in stone. Like, you just have to do it, and also prove people wrong. Like, you don't want to prove people right. So I just kept like pushing and pushing and pushing. And then stuff didn't happen for a long time. And we got married, and things didn't happen for a couple months. And I think I got one thing a couple months after we were married of somebody saying that he was trying to reach out to their girlfriend. But other than that, besides his typical just not being very kind most of the time, after Kansas, we were there married for a couple months, but we knew that we were stationed in Hawaii after. So that was exciting. But we moved to Hawaii, and then we were there for almost a year, when I hadn't gone through his phone or done anything in so long. But it was Christmas time, and I had friends out of town, and so we were watching their dogs for them. And when he went to go check on the dogs, I stayed home, and for some reason there was just something telling me, I was like, he has a spare phone, like his old phone in the junk drawer, go through it. And I hadn't done it in a year. And I did, and he would always do stuff on Snapchat, and what's weird about Snapchat is if you log in on another device, it logs you out of the first device that you were logged into.
Okay.
But he had it set up, which was almost a miracle, that if he had his profile saved, so you just had to click on it and it would log him back in. So I got to get in without knowing what his password was and everything, because every single time I in the past would log into his account, he would know about it and he would change his password again. So I wouldn't have known his password.
But at this point, he hadn't been acting. You just had a gut feeling like,
Yeah.
I need to look at this. I need to find out.
Yeah.
Because there's something telling me something is off.
Mm-hmm. Something told me. And I looked and I found lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff. Not so much with girls from high school, but just random girls on the app that he would try to get stuff from. And the most disturbing thing I found, which I don't, like, it took me a long time to either tell anybody that this was a part of it or ask him about it, was there was something with a guy.
Oh, okay.
And I, like, it was, because I don't know. So Snapchat stuff disappears,
Yeah.
but you can click on it and it saves in the chat. And he had sent a picture of himself, which saved, and the guy had sent a picture of himself, and that saved. So that made me feel kind of sick, not because there's anything wrong with that, but that wasn't, I mean, he's married to me.
Yeah.
And girls is one thing, but then that's a whole nother thing to, I don't know. It made me not feel good at all. And so when I finally did ask him about it.
How long from when you found it to when you actually confronted it? Like, because obviously that would be something like, to process it would be like, what the hell? Like, what?
He's so confusing.
Like, yeah. So how long did it take for you to, compose yourself and be like, all right, I see what's happening. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to go.
I guess it was maybe a week or two. It wasn't that long, but still with everything going on, I kept it to myself. Like, I bet that because that's he had to have known that was on there. So I bet that he was waiting for it and was probably like, oh, she's not bringing it up. I hope she didn't see that part of it.
Well, but that, like, even a week or two, it's like, did you distance yourself from it? Because, I mean, you're married. Obviously, mm-hmm. You're going to be sleeping in the same room. You're going to be together. Like, how do you go from, like, I just saw all this shit on his phone, and now I have to live with him without saying anything. Mm-hmm.
So I said something about everything else. I just didn't say anything about finding the guy stuff. Okay. So he did know that. He came home and it took like 30 minutes for me to really do anything. Like, he knew that I found the phone. But I kind of locked myself in the bathroom because I was freaking out. And when I finally did say something, I was like, I need you to get out. Like, go stay with a friend. I don't want you here. I don't want to see you. I need to figure it out. I'm confused. I'm hurt. And he wouldn't leave. And finally I got him to at least, like, drive away and go somewhere else. And I guess he called a good friend of both of ours saying, I messed up. Like, I need your help. I have a problem. And what changed this time that was different from the past is he finally stopped with bullshit lies that were obvious. Like, I could see it in front of my face, but he would still try to lie about it. And he admitted, he was like, I have a problem. I think I need help. I have a porn addiction and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I can believe you or if that's just an excuse, but at least you're being, like, open mm-hmm. and saying something vulnerable. So we started therapy. And of course, we were in Hawaii through, like, the entire COVID peak, and Hawaii was really difficult to be there for it, but we couldn't do, like, in-person therapy sessions. So we could only do phone calls. And it was hard enough to ever get him, because if we couldn't be in person with a therapist, I wanted him to be home in person with me so that me and him weren't over the phone. And it was hard to get him home to even do that, but he agreed to it. But I set it up. I found it. I did all these things. And, but then a week after our first therapy session, another girl messages me, and she put herself online inappropriately, so I think he thought that it would be fine. So he would message her for stuff, but he would tell her stuff like, Sarah doesn't do these things for me, like sexually kind of, and like I wasn't giving enough to him and I didn't understand, and I'm like just a lot of bad things. And so he was like, he would try to pay her for stuff, to send him stuff. And so she finally messaged out and she told me that she debated even doing it. But that I was like, okay, this is a week after we started a first therapy session and you're doing it again. It was that fast. Couldn't have taken a break for a second. So our friends that we were watching the dogs, they came back at that point. And I finally told them everything because they were mutual friends. So I didn't really have friends that I could talk to without, because I was trying to save his privacy as well while we were figuring it out and not make him lose all of his friends. Not that that would happen, but it was because they weren't just mine. But then I finally told them, I was like, I don't know what to do. And they let me stay with them, and I stayed with them for about a week. But we had 2 cats, and I took the cats with me because I kind of wanted to scare him as well. Because this whole time, I like always stayed. He knew that I was never gonna leave, and so I wanted him to have fear that I could leave. And he didn't really do much. He acted scared, like he would text me that he was scared. He's like, just bring the cats home, like come home, we'll figure it out. But he wouldn't come to the house to try to get me, or he just wouldn't try that hard. But I told him, I was like, I'm tired of being the one to think of things to save this. This is your issue. I need you to come up with what's gonna help and what we can do. And what I wanted him to say was, if this is a problem, I wanted him to let me put like ultimately parental controls on his phone so he couldn't download certain stuff, like stay off of social media for a while. If this is a real problem and addiction, like you need to cut yourself off from it so we can have the time to find help. And he wouldn't come up with that. And so I finally had to tell him, I'm like, this is what's going to make me feel comfortable, so I know that you can't do it behind my back. And it was like a child. Like, I felt like I was parenting a child the whole time because he just, moaned and groaned and was like, are you kidding? Like, you're going to take my stuff away. And when I got back from staying with my friends, because that's what he decided, and so I was like, okay, I'll come home and we'll work on it. That old phone that I'd originally found, I asked him, I was like, hey, where is this? I just feel better having it so that you can't have that temptation either. And he was at a friend's house at that point, and he would be like, oh, I'll give it to you when I get home. I'm like, no, tell me where it is. And he kept dodging it, so then I get a little crazy, and I'm throwing stuff around trying to find it, and it's clear that he hid it, and I'm losing my mind. And then he comes home, and he's just calling me a psycho, and I'm toxic, and all this bad stuff. And then he went and grabbed the phone, and I said, where was it? And he's like, I was just gonna reset it. Like, it's fine, I'll just reset it. And I'm like, no, before you reset it, now I want to know what's on it. And he reset it in front of me so that I couldn't see anything. And then he finally told me that it was up on top of the cabinets. I was like, well, why was it on the cabinets? And he's like, well, I was hiding it from myself. I said, if you were hiding it from yourself, you would give it to me. That doesn't even make sense. So there was that. And that was right after I got home. And then we, I guess, kept trying the therapy sessions, and we had a spare bedroom, luckily, so we didn't have to sleep together.
Yeah.
But
So after that situation, I mean, there's clearly okay, there's something being hidden.
Yeah, like you can't.
And that trust, which in a relationship, trust is like the most important thing. So obviously trust is broken.
Yeah.
How you keep going to therapy? How long do you keep going?
Honestly, not that long. It was also hard because his parents came and visited. This all happened in January, and his parents came to visit in February. So that was bad because we had to pretend like nothing was going on, which made us fall back into a routine again for a while. But since that happened in January, I 100% emotionally detached.
Okay.
I was kind of just going through the motions and everything. And it wasn't until July that he progressively got meaner and meaner, kind of. And I ended up giving him his stuff back on his phone because he lost his mind about it. He's like, "You're taking everything away from me. You have no right. It's my stuff. Like, give it back."
Was he meaner in how he treated you? Things that he would say to you?
Yeah,
Like it
how
was.
he would treat me. I was very much so a housewife of cooking, cleaning, laundry. He expected these things. He didn't help with anything. He was dirty. He was gross. I would cook dinner and wait for him to come home from diving with his friends, and he would be like, "Oh, I'm eating here." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Well, I cooked dinner. I'm just sitting here waiting." And I would do a lot of not going to do things for myself or hang out with my friends because I would wait for him. So he didn't want to spend time with me. He rarely kissed me like the whole time. And so, yeah, just meaner in the way he'd treat me. And kind of when his friends were around, he would think it was cool to be even meaner, like being, "You're the woman, like call me bitch," and like all this stuff. So I had like a little art business out there that I did, and I had an art fair in the neighborhood that I was doing in July. And I had just taken him skydiving for his birthday. And at the time, I still had my credit card that I had since high school, and the credit limit was only like $500 because I just never needed to raise it.
Yeah.
But with skydiving, it's expensive, so that credit card was maxed. And we had a debit card that was our joint bank account. But for this art fair, I had to go get a big canopy tent for it, and I was going to buy a new one, but I couldn't. My debit card was lost and my credit card wasn't working. So I ended up finding somebody in the neighborhood that was selling one for $50, and I could just Venmo them for it. So I got that one, but it was really dirty. And I kept telling him I was stressed about this art thing. I had never done a fair, and I felt like I didn't have enough product. Everything was going wrong. And I asked him the morning of, I'm like, "I really need your help. Like, I need you to help me set up. I need you to help me clean the tent." And he told me he would, but it, again, was kind of like a mom trying to parent and get her kid out of bed because he just didn't want to get out of bed, and was being a jerk when I was upset. And he finally went out and tried to clean the tent, but he was just being an ass all morning. And we finally get to the event, and my final straw was literally, I'll never forget how it made me feel when I'm already crying because I'm stressed. And he looked around and he said, "Look at everybody else's setup. Look at their tents. They're so clean. You're going to look so effing dumb. You're going to look like a moron. You don't even know what you're doing. Like, why didn't you just get a new tent?" And I was like, "I couldn't get a new tent because I took you skydiving. Like, you don't know. You don't understand." And so he just kept telling me how dumb I was going to look. And
which is not what a spouse should tell their
no,
spouse.
it's not what anybody should tell anybody. My friend came to help me, and it was windy and the tent was blowing away, and it just was a mess. And she was helping me hold it down, and I looked at her and I was like, "I hate him. Like, I think I hate him 100%. Like, I had already felt like I was emotionally detached. I was more and more pushing away. And then after that, I was like, I can't do it. And so I was mad at him, and he knew I was mad at him. But then a couple of days later from the 4th of July event, I get home from work and I walk in on him doing stuff in the bedroom with himself on his phone. And I didn't even think to ask questions. I'm like, I don't know if it was a girl or what you were doing, but his friends were over, which was weird. He just was gross and weird. And I just walked in and I walked out, and I didn't ever go back.
And that was it.
That was it. I was like, I'm done. But I did. Sorry, that all started because you asked me about the dating scene.
I know. Well, hey, this is great. No, but this is leading up to the whole. Because honestly, like, having gone through all of that, like, and again, now you're putting yourself into a place of like, I've been through craziness. So when it comes to dating now, because obviously, I mean, you get divorced, right? How long? Because again, now that was what, you were 22 at that point. How long does it take to get back to a point where you're like, all right, I'm ready to date?
So
Because you have a boyfriend now, so
I
clearly
do.
that
It happened really
that
fast.
barrier was down.
Yeah.
Is it, and what caught, is it just you found somebody that actually treated you the way that you're like, I need to be treated this way? Or
So the funny story is my friend that helped me through all of that, it's her brother. So
the plot thickens.
yeah. So I stayed with her forever, but her brother came to live with her for a couple months because they're from here. So he lived here and he was having, obviously not divorced issues, but same dating issues with toxic people here that he just needed a break. So he went and lived with her for a couple months. But that's how I met him. And it happened really fast. So that's kind of the embarrassing part because I did that a lot in the past with toxic relationships. Mm-hmm. But I also, it happens fast saying it out loud, but in the moment, it was such a long time coming where I was going through the motions and was obviously still married and in a relationship, but I had been so emotionally detached for so long that it felt like I was already single. Like it didn't ever feel like I was married. So yeah, so it was fast, but it also was immediately like I was done with BS. I was done with, there was a lot of things that made my patience super thin. Like, I mean, it was COVID and the political time and losing friends because of having differing opinions and being tired of being told that I need to shut up, or if I don't shut up, then I need to have the right opinion. And I was just so impatient with everything. And then the divorce that I was like, if anything were to happen, or if he was an ass, I'd be like, all right, screw you. Like, I'm not in the mood. But I don't know. So it's hard because I didn't really get the dating scene necessarily because it just all kind of happened each time.
Yeah,
But,
and you were set up. You never had to go through the dating
right.
process or whatever. Well, I mean, searching process. I guess dating is a completely different thing. But
I do have to say, from watching other people, it is very much so apps. Like I feel like unless there's people at school that still know their boyfriends from high school, the only other way I feel like I hear of people meeting other people is through apps. I mean, even my brother is with his girlfriend through an app, and it's great if that works. Like I feel like I could never do it because it scares me. I like to know somebody first before going on a date because it's just showing up blind is kind of weird.
But I guess, well, since you haven't gone through the dating side of it, do you feel, because having been in a toxic relationship or a relationship where you weren't valued or didn't feel like you were being treated the way that you definitely deserve to be treated, do you feel like going through that? Because I think somebody told me once that you can look at life as being bad or you can look at it as being hard. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it as being bad, it's always going to be bad. And things are just going to be, they're just going to be bad. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it as being hard, there's growth from that. Like you can come out the other side and grow and learn and be a better, stronger, whatever person. Mm-hmm. Being honestly, I'm a people pleaser. I've always been that way. It's learning how to tell people no and how to tell people like, I'm not going to put up with that is a very difficult thing for somebody that's a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting a little bit like that's kind of where you were. Mm-hmm. So having gone through that, do you feel like you've come out the other side as a stronger person? And in the relationship that you're in now, what are the differences? Because clearly you don't want to just sit and put up with shit.
Right.
Like you're going to.
Yeah.
So how are you now with your boyfriend versus back then?
Luckily, yeah, no, it makes sense. Luckily, a lot better. There are things that still happen because obviously he's so loving, he's so patient, he's so understanding, he helps out, he does his part, he talks me up, he doesn't ever talk down to me. He has respect of, like, he doesn't, like, there's nothing wrong with cussing, but my ex-husband was over the top where he didn't care if it was in front of my parents or like just like aggressively cussing. But my boyfriend doesn't do that, and he's respectful, and he grew up with sisters, so that helps. But there has been things that have happened where I immediately, like, because of just trauma, I guess, I'll shut down and I'll think that something's gonna happen or it's gonna go one way. And he's like, it's okay, like, you're fine, calm down. Like, say I spill something or break a glass, I'm waiting for him to say, what is wrong with you? You're so stupid, kind of thing. And so I'll cower, I'll say I'm sorry a million times, which is definitely something I'm still working on, and it's getting better. So that's the fault that I still have of realizing that this is different and I don't need to cower. But one thing that I'm really proud of for getting better is, like, just not putting up with BS. I mean, everybody does things that irritate you sometimes. I'm like, if you need to help out more, then I say it and he'll do it. And I'll speak my mind more. We'll have conversations. And I think the problem with my ex-husband was because we were in long distance for so long, we didn't know how to communicate either. Because if there was ever an argument or anything, it would always be over text. And so that was a big thing to learn. Because even when we were married, I would tell him to get out, and then everything would conspire over text. And it was super unhealthy. And so it was hard to have those conversations that were conflict, and they were hard, and have them in person and be, like, useful.
But everything over text, there's no emotion. There's no, you can't, if I could count the number of people that I've said, they got a text, but I don't know what they mean.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless you put like a little smiley face emoji or something like that at the end, you're like, oh, they're being funny. Or, oh, they're being like. Or
you have more freedom to say mean things, which he didn't have that problem. He could say them no matter what. But it was, I mean, I would have faults too, because I would say things that I shouldn't, that would just heat it up because I was so mad and angry that it didn't help. But I would do that because it was text. So that I've had to work on with him a lot. But the biggest thing that I'm really proud of, and it's nice to hear my parents say it too, is just, I put off school for a long time with him, and I've wanted to do cosmetology since high school, since as long as I can remember. But I kept saying, oh, it'll happen, like the wedding's coming, and then we're moving, and then all these things. I just kept putting it off and off and off. And he would always say, it's not a real school. Like, don't you want to do something real? Don't, you know? And so then when coming here, my boyfriend lives here obviously too, because he grew up here, and he needed to leave Hawaii, and obviously I needed to leave Hawaii. I couldn't stay there forever. But I wasn't necessarily ready to go home to Florida, and I know my parents wanted me to, obviously. But I was like, I had researched schools here, and I just did it. Yeah. I moved, and they were worried because of course there was another boy involved, and they're like, how is this going to be different? But I just knew. And my mom hates when I say it because she doesn't like that I'm okay with it. She likes that I'm okay with it, but I say a lot, I'm like, I don't regret anything. I don't regret having gotten married. I don't regret any of my choices, as terrible as they were. And everybody should be like at the same time, yeah, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't push and do these certain things, but it led me here. And I feel like I'm smarter and I'm stronger, and I have a better understanding of a lot of things. Well, and
it's made you who you are today. Yeah. And who you are today, from what I can gather, is you're amazing. So, you. We all have to go through choices that we make, and, either accept that was a choice we made and move on and, again, grow from it and learn and become better, or we're stuck being the same person that we always were. And most people, I think, most people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Most people want to become better, and they want to better their situations, and they don't want to stay where it's toxic. What's that? Misery loves company. Like, people that are miserable want other people there to be miserable with them.
Right, exactly. So that was a big lesson to learn. But my parents always, they would say, just be sunshine. Like you're sunshine. Like stop, just that dimming your light. And it happened for so long that I was like, all right, I'm done. I don't care like what happens. I need to go to school. I need to do something for myself. I need to stop giving in for people and pleasing people. And coming here was hard too, because it was a big culture shock. I didn't grow up in this scene. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I grew up Christian and not Mormon. And it's just a big difference. I feel like
the
in
Utah
this area
scene is very different.
Yeah. So I was very, very, very nervous of going into school. I was like, I know I'm going to be around all girls. They're all probably going to be so hardcore Mormon that I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb, or I'm going to be judged for things, or I've been through a divorce and I drink and I'm not picture perfect. But like, I was nervous about that. But at the same time, I told myself, I'm like, if one person judges me because of what I do or my beliefs, then bye. Like, I don't have to talk to you. Like it's okay if you want to not agree with it. Like that's okay.
Was your assumption correct though? I feel
yeah, in ways. Not like it's definitely, I think, because you hear stories and you hear stereotypes and stuff, that it is not as bad or nerve-wracking as I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. But there definitely has been things that have proven me right. But that's also okay, because it's just, I have my beliefs, people have their beliefs, and if they're different, you don't have to be, I'm going to be civil and nice and happy to everybody, but it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect friends, and I can't conform to them or hide it.
Yeah.
So.
No, but I feel like everybody has like an assumption about things, but I feel like it's, and I don't know if it's maybe based on just what we hear on TV or social media or whatever, but like I would say the majority of the time is like, yeah, there might be a few that are very much exactly what we think, but that's the minority, not the majority. Yeah,
and that is true. It is definitely not the whole bunch. And that was, it was pleasing that it's not as bad as expected. It's just as nerve-wracking. I don't know. Like, the culture is definitely there, because I bartended at Chili's while I'm going to school, and that was hard because I've bartended in Florida, and so just the rules and the laws were so hard to. Not that they're, well, some of them are weird. Some of them I'd say are kind of wrong, but it was a culture shock in that way, to learn how to bartend in such a different area, and like it's almost scarier. Because I don't know. I mean, I've gotten tested by the secret people so many times, and every single time I'm like shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, because they send people, because you have to ID if they're 35 and up. But I'm like, I know these people are not under 21, but because there was a guy that came in and he was 26, and I'm like, I know. The only reason I would ID him is if I was worried if he was undercover, because I knew that he was of age. And luckily I ID'd him. But I was like, can you, like, I would have lost my job, and I would have gotten a fine, and the manager on duty would have gotten fired, and like just this whole thing that I'm like, but I know he's not. I'm going to tell you
from experience, anytime you get ID'd, even if you know you're over 21, it still makes you feel like,
I know.
They think I'm 21. So it's like, it's okay.
I know.
ID the 90-year-old guy that comes in and be like, I need to see your ID, sir.
I know.
Makes him feel young for a minute.
Or they're like, you need to see my ID? I'm like, yeah, we like to flatter here. You look good. But it just, there were things that are a culture shock, but I also at the same time am very, very happy here, and I love it, and I don't regret being here at all. I feel like I'm where I need to be.
So what would be, if you could, you were talking earlier about, you see some friends that are going through there in that, I want to get married, I want to get this, I want to get that. What would be your advice that you would say?
Don't settle. That's just straight to the point. Don't settle, because I did it for a long time, and I'd lay in bed thinking, this is it. Like, you just have to do it. And so or go with your gut feeling. Like, if there's ever a worry, then it's not worth it. Or at least just to wait. I feel like I know now, and it's so hard to tell people because I was there and I didn't want to listen to anybody, but I'm like, there is no rush. Like, if you're meant to be together, they're still going to be there in a year or two.
Yeah. See, that's great advice. And see, honestly, just because you've gone through that, you truly have grown. Like you've learned, you've made smarter. You're not going to settle anymore. You know exactly what you don't want, which makes finding what you do want easier.
A lot easier.
So,
yeah.
Well, honestly, even though we started out with dating, it didn't go at all in dating. But no, honestly, I loved the story, and I'm so grateful that you shared it with us. So thank you for that.
Thank you for listening. Such a good listening ear.
Let's do one last question,
Okay.
just to kind of finish it off. And I'm on this kick today of doing Never Have I Ever, or not Never Have I Ever. It's Would You Rather. Never Have I Ever.
Yeah,
a whole different way.
A whole new ballpark.
But would you rather, and let's say, would you rather, my kids are always playing this game with me, but they ask some really strange, weird ones. So
Kids are creative.
would you rather know the day you're going to die or know how you're going to die?
I think day.
Why?
I think that if you know how you're going to die, you're going to live in fear of everything. Like, say it's going to be by a car and you're going to avoid it and have those phobias. But if it's day, then you get to live to the fullest and just have fun. And when the day comes, that sucks. You're going to be a little scared then, but at least you're not living in fear the whole time.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we're done. Your hair, we cut a lot off.
Thank you. I know. I've been trying not to focus on it. It looks so good, though.
Well, thank you. And
Thank you.